Amy Zaley with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for June 1. What do we remember and what do we forget? We are on the heels of Memorial Day, a holiday in America wherein we honor and remember the fallen military and first responding heroes from all our conflicts, wars, and tragic events. We also had a tragic shooting in two incidences, one in Buffalo, New York, and one in Uvalde, Texas. Sometimes it feels like we cannot bear remembering the deaths of those in the past or face the deaths today without feeling crushed. As we lift up family members who grieve in the wake of losing loved ones from any number of tragic reasons, I am sobered this week by a post from an Israeli on Facebook who was offering the United States its sincerest condolences and sympathy regarding our losses. He mentioned in his post 16 innocent Israeli lives that were also lost within a week in Israel. And it occurred to me that every loss of life by any manner, especially those resulting from crime or terrorism, is something Israelis seem to face almost every week in a country the size of New Jersey. I remember once in 2008 when I was in Israel, an Israeli woman told me that every Israeli is personally touched by violence, either his or her own being or the victim is an immediate family member. She said tragic and untimely death is part of every family. Is this statistic going to happen within America's Jewish families? Back to that article on May 22nd in the New York Post. Israelis are surrounded by all sides and factions that are interested in destroying them, not living side by side and not having a two-state solution, but to remove them from their indigenous land. In fact, Congresswoman Tlaib in the U.S. House introduced a bill just last week noting the indigenous nature of Arabs, the right of return, and demanding the recognition of Nakba, an event when Arabs fled the region at the behest of the Arab League. The goal was to then remove the Jews from the land and the Arabs moved back in. However, they didn't expect Israel to prevail, so the history was spun and somehow now it is recognized as Israelis expelling the Arabs, which isn't exactly how it happened. So within this New York Post article, it notes in New York City alone, attacks against Jews were up nearly 100% from March this year and March last year, per NYPD data. And there's a 400% hike in February and a 300% hike in January. This upsurge in anti-Semitic attacks in New York City is driving a statewide crisis. And anti-Jewish violence is at an all-time high, according to the Anti-Defamation League, who has been issuing reports yearly for about the last 40 years. And anti-Semitic incidences in New York State alone rose 24% with 1,416 cases, 51 of them assaults. Remember, they've been recording data for about 40 years. Attacks on Jewish institutions such as synagogues and schools were also up 41%. The article outlines much of what I've been reporting in the last few years, especially about BDS movements on college campuses. And this article actually focused on the BDS movement within New York City schools. Moreover, it directly connects the activities on those college campuses to the communities at large around New York City and the entire state. And the article ends, quote, nationally, a similar trend involves intensifying anti-Semitic incidents and the increase in the number of prominent colleges and universities endorsing BDS or anti-Israel positions. The day before this New York Post article came out, there was an article in the Jerusalem Post which talked about BDS and its recognition in the United States. It notes that most Americans do not know or support BDS, according to a Pew Research poll. What is interesting about this article is the statistics, and it shows that 84% of Americans don't even know what BDS is, but once it's identified, 95% of those don't support it. So what's going on in American universities seems to be a subversive effort by the Palestinians to back boycott, divest, and sanction proponents to gather up a general sentiment of anti-Zionism at the very least and anti-Semitic notions at the very worst, all under the nose of most everyday Americans, many of whom are sending their children to these elite and expensive colleges only to be indoctrinated to hate the only Jewish state on the face of the earth. Our mission at the Jerusalem Connection is to advocate for Israel and the Jewish people worldwide, to educate and activate our followers to do what they can within their own networks and spheres of influence to fight back against anti-Semitism in whatever form you find it and wherever it manifests, whether it's the entertainment industry, the political realm, the pulpit, or the general town square. To recognize anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism where it is found and call it out, and under no circumstances allow for the double standard of judgment against Israel or Jews, which is part of the definition of anti-Semitism as defined by the IHRA and is adopted by so many schools and organizations around the world. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.